minutes from last month's meeting, the April 8th meeting. Are there any comments or any corrections or additions to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? Second?
Second.
There. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we begin the reports with Mr. Westman.
Thank you, ma'am. In case you can't hear me, I've got this microphone. The city has a financial wealth of $11,866,000. $8,962,000 are in unrestricted funds, and $2,900,000 is in the restricted funds. For the month that's just ended, our cash receipts for the month was $515,000, and our monthly expenditures are $655,000. And our expenditures are keeping up with the tracking of the calendar month, so it's 83% of the year is over and 83% of our expenditures have been made. Right now, the total operating budget calls for expenditures of $7,027,000, and we've expended year-to-date $5,213,000. So we have $1,813,000 to be expended, and we do have reserves to cover that if had to. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to give you the answers. If not,
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Westman from council? No? Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report subject to audit? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the report's approved. Ms. Tintula?
Good evening. This past month has been pretty busy. The work for the Delaware River Trail Study is ongoing. We're continuing to work with JMT, the engineering firm who's working on this project, and we've also begun meeting with stakeholders who will be involved in this project, and we're hoping to have this project continue, and we'll be working on a pre-application for the ORPT grant to allow the feasibility of this work to continue as the year goes on. After the last meeting, the day after the last meeting, the ditch behind the Walgreens was cleaned out by Norfolk Southern, as long awaited by everyone here. The project that is going to improve the Delaware Street Railroad project has again been postponed by Delvat as they wait for Norfolk Southern to provide an updated approval on the work. They are still both remaining committed to completing this project and have assured us they'll complete this in a timely manner as soon as next year. The floating dock is complete as we previously reported. We're just awaiting a few punch list items which will soon be completed. The work for the citywide paving contract and the ABI sidewalk contracts are both underway. If you see some markings, give us a call, we'll let you know. But residents in the area of the work should be receiving notification. We are wrapping up the work for the 3 UD projects that have gone on during their spring semester. The undergraduate students who presented a revenue project have conducted their presentation at the end of April and have presented their recommendations to council. They did a wonderful job. We also have the MPA student who's working on HR projects, and she will be wrapping up her semester next week and will be sending that information to me to review with our HR support. We also have the communications undergraduate students who have also just finalized their work and have given us all of their recommendations to be sent to the state to update our website and improve the look and the functionality. Just a reminder that we have the UD graduate student who will be helping us later in the summer with preparing a long-term capital project and financial planning. And then we are also going to have a summer intern who will help us with various projects. Some more details to come on that at the next meeting. This past month, we submitted for the bond bill request to our state legislators. We have applied for a number of things. So the first prioritized items are the prioritized streets as categorized by our engineer for the streets that are most needed of improvement. This include 7th Street, Shaw Alley, Penn Street, Umbrella Row, Dobbinsville Roadways on one side of the area, Linden Avenue, Juniper Street, Chiquette Square, Lincoln Street, Arbutus and Meehan Avenues, 11th and 12th Streets, and Danvers Village. We also applied for the work that was going to be conducted under the BRIC grant that we had intentions of applying for. This was to conduct a detailed flood vulnerability study for the entire city along the Delaware River and Bay to focus on coastal and riverine flooding from severe storm events and sea level rise. As you recall from the last meeting, unfortunately BRIC has been canceled for now, and it's important that we continue this work, so we will be pursuing other revenue to get this work done. We also applied for a feasibility study for future potential property locations, police department HVAC upgrades, administration building renovations, and streetlight installation in coordination with street repairs to Chiquette Square. The charter changes for which council approved 2 resolutions at the last council meeting have been sent to the House and the Senate. They are both on agendas tomorrow. That is HB 144, an act to amend the charter of the city of Newcastle relating to property taxes. This would authorize the council to levy taxes on real property at varying rates based upon property classification. And Senate Bill 127, an act to amend the charter of the city of Newcastle relating to rents. This would amend the charter to provide that the council may impose and collect a tax of no more than 5% on the gross rents within the city boundaries. The tax may not apply to rental properties that are directly subsidized by federal, state, or city of Newcastle rental assistance funding. Both, again, are scheduled at the House and Senate committees tomorrow afternoon. As everyone up here knows, the budget season has begun. We've shared our preliminary budget recommendations and tax rate recommendations with council. We'll continue budget meetings on Thursday, May 15th, and we'll have additional meetings in the month of June as we work to finalize the budget. All are encouraged to attend and have their voices heard. Separation Day is fast approaching. Planning continues to be underway. If anyone is interested in participating in the parade or being a vendor, you are encouraged to visit our city website or contact our office to get registered. And this is on June 6th and 7th. And that is it for my report. Are there any questions?
I have several questions regarding the budget meeting on Thursday. I mentioned potentially putting an ad on
Yes.
Facebook. Have you placed an
I'm
ad?
gonna put it out tomorrow, yes. But the agenda's been posted and it's been in the weekly as well. Also, as part of my report, I would like to invite, thank you, I would like to invite the Planning Commission Chair up to give her annual report for us. And you should have the report in your packet as well.
Is this not? No, it's not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Margot Rain. I am the Chair of the Planning Commission for the City of Newcastle. And I have been requested to provide you with some brief information as to what we have been doing the past year. The commission has been busy. We had 6 approvals. We approved 2 lots on Buttonwood for development. We have 1 lot on Gray Street. Crozier Fine Arts plans in addition to their building. 1 Arbutus Drive, 3 lots were approved. We approved the renovations or upgrades to the Markel Trail site. And then there was about 8 lots on 7th Street that were approved as special exemption for a religious institution. We also reviewed ordinances from the City Council regarding lot frontage and wetlands and a proposed moratorium on building large apartment buildings. We are currently in the process of discussing possible changes to the city code regarding short-term rental units. We adopted rules and procedures for the Planning Commission last year. We are requesting some training, some FOIA training for all the commissioners. If any of them have had it, it's been a while, and we have several people who've never had it, so we wanna do that this coming year. And we are encouraging anybody who has not taken the classes for the certificate for planning education to sign up and take those classes that are offered by the Biden School at the University of Delaware. Chris Rogers is our professional advisor, and he primarily he's the primary contact with attorneys and engineers for projects. We also work closely with Max Walton, the city solicitor, and Antonina, the city manager and her staff. And everybody's been great to work with this past year. I'm so pleased and happy with what we've been able to accomplish and the work we've been able to do together. We do have one position open remaining on the planning commission, and we are looking, but we are willing to be, careful in the selection of one additional person. So if you know somebody who would be a good addition, let the mayor know, please. For 2025-26, our plans are, we are required to provide an update to the 5-year review of the comprehensive plan. And we hope to do that before December and submit a report into the state. So as a group, we are going section by section through the plan to make sure everybody understands it, we've identified some things like statistics that need to be updated that we'll probably try to do now, and then other things that we really feel that we are gonna need to address when it's time to do the 10-year plan. In terms of budget requests, beyond the money needed to cover the FOIA training, and we've had to have a number of meetings here, so we probably need some money for room rentals. The other thing I just want to kind of propose to council is we will need to be doing a full-blown comprehensive plan in 2030. That is a significant cost, and I'm thinking we might want to start putting some money aside, so when we're ready to do that, we'll have the money to cover that. Does anybody have any questions?
2 questions. Do you know how much, is it $50,000 or $100,000? I can't remember what was the last time that we did comprehensive plan, so we just.
I wasn't there, but the number I had heard was $70,000, so.
Thank you.
So by the time we'll probably need at least 100.
My second question is, regarding the review, the 5-year review, could you, as part of that review, work with our city administrator to, at each of the sections of the comprehensive plan, there's like these objectives and goals that we set as a community to say, act in this, so it would be kind of great to know out of 40 different goals we have completed 30, we're in progress on 5, and 5 we haven't started. Like that would kind of also maybe help, not just planning commission, but entire city, kind of understand and get a grasp. And I had this conversation with the city administrator in the past, so I think if you guys can connect on that with the commission, and that would be great to know, so that as we come to 2030, we can also reevaluate those goals and, either say, oh, these are too ambitious, or, expand on them.
I think our deadline for submitting that is December, and so probably once we're done with that, I come back and report what we found with our 5-year review.
I would also like to add the annual report that you do for the state includes items like that.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we can share that once that's complete, that's usually around July.
Perfect. So December is a deadline for the 5-year review update?
Yes.
Any other questions?
I just have one question on, you said at the Bible school you have some lessons that can be taken by the people on the planning. Is there a cost to those?
It's not much. I think when I took them, they were $20 to $30 a piece.
Is that part of our budget?
Yes. And we've sent people to classes this past year as well.
Okay, I'm assuming nobody else has any other questions because nobody's looking at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I actually had a couple questions for you.
Sure.
In regards to your report.
Yes.
Thank you for the extensive review. I had two projects, wondering if you could possibly check in with the respective entities
Okay.
on the status. One is the trailhead in regards to the Marco Trail, where Newcastle County came out last fall and said the funds were awarded. I believe a number of months ago, Councilperson Day did some research. Thank you for that. But if we can get maybe an update on that.
Yes.
And then also the fishing pier.
Yes.
Stoppenville Fishing Pier.
Yeah, I should have an update on that, hopefully at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chief McCabe?
Good evening. I think you can all tell I've given you our annual reports. I know it's kind of last minute, so obviously I don't expect any questions tonight on that, but obviously I'm available for questions during the week, and then this will be, on our website shortly, so everybody can take a look at it. If there's no questions on our monthly report, I'm going to jump right into some of the things we dealt with this month. To reiterate, as the city administrator talked about, the separation day is coming, so we're gonna have some outreach to talk about some of the road closures and parking restrictions that have existed for years. We'll make contact with some of the businesses that get affected, so hopefully there's no issues this year. Primarily, this month, what I wanna talk about is a lot of the directed patrol that we've established over the last 4 to 5 weeks. These directed patrols are based primarily on citizens' complaints. Most of them involve traffic violations, speed, the area of Wilmington Road, specifically north of Moores Lane, speed on West 7th Street near Dobbinsville, and then stop sign and parking violations in the downtown area, and then quality of life complaints in the Bolton and Van Dyke area. So our officers have been directed to patrol those areas and identify those existing complaints. They've done that pretty vigorously with some results it's good citation results, warning results, and some outreach stuff. Although you don't see an increase in overall citations for the month, these are specifically dealing with those calls for service. So there is a significant increase. So we're hoping that if we prolong this type of directed patrol, we may see a reduce in some of the issues with the speed complaints. The parking violations downtown are something we may have to talk about at another date to see if there's enough marking, signage, and stuff like that to be enforced. But for the obvious stuff, where driveways are parked, intersections are blocked, things like that, we obviously have had no issues in enforcing that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions from council for Chief McCabe? Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, I do have, I'm so sorry, I do have a written question, so I'm not gonna repeat what I already asked about the speeding, because you just addressed that, so thank you for that, but I had a question about homeless, population in our city, and I think according to your report, a couple of meetings ago, there wasn't a large issue in our city, but I wanted to see, is there anything that you could, because we're in the budget season, so I'm thinking of this as is there an additional thing in the budget we could add, that you could think that we could add to actually, even more actively patrol in areas to identify neighbors who are homeless, so we can match them to resources so they can ideally get out of those, unfortunate circumstances. And I know you already do that, but I just am reaching out to see if there's more that we can do as a city.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up, because it does take me to a state initiative that's about to be proposed that we have some issues with. So, and just to clarify, I said that we had a significant amount or not?
No, not significant, not
Okay,
significant. I think
yeah.
that was my understanding from,
Yeah.
it wasn't a report, it was just,
Yeah.
you followed up on an incident that happened behind Walgreens and then.
Yeah, right. So yeah, there was a death investigation, and it was, a homeless couple. So, with our core program, that's our way of trying to link, not just, not just homeless, but anybody that suffers from substance abuse issues. But it's specifically important to use that resource for homeless people, because the bottom line is that what the core program does is it links them to whatever service, whatever inequities they have. So if they're identified, if we're called to that location, then we make contact with them, give them this access. One of the things that we're waiting to see how this lands is there is a bill that's, I think it's been filed, it may be scheduled for a committee hearing soon, known as the Homeless Bill of Rights. And this is it's gonna be a huge issue with us and our ability to enforce quality of life calls. So while we've worked hard to develop resources for those that are suffering from homelessness, a bill like this would restrict our ability to have access to them. We would be less inclined to make contact with folks that have been identified as homeless in fear of being accused of harassing. And it also causes problems, maybe not in this city, but in other cities, where there are large populations of homelessness that are, basically in front of businesses, in front of churches, and causing serious quality of life issues. So it's another one of these issues that we found ourselves as law enforcement in the middle of kind of an ideological or philosophical difference. We have to have the ability to address people that are infringing on rights of way, in traffic, and causing quality of life issues. Our response to that is to link them with resources to help them with that. So two things out of this would be, I would, at some point when this bill does drop, I would plan to come here and ask for help from the league or from any local elected officials to talk to their state representatives and about the impact that a bill like that may have. The second part is I would call 911 if somebody sees somebody they think is homeless, and we would respond and address it appropriately. The fear is with legislation that's pending, there may be a break in that communication, and our ability to interact with them may be restricted a little bit. So it's a good question. Thank you.
So I'm sorry for making this longer, but appreciate your input on this. This is really helpful. And I know it's hard to know motivation behind the sponsor of the bill, but do you know by any chance, is there anything prescribed? Like, is it supposed to be social services or, nonprofit or something? Because it's hard to believe that somebody would introduce a bill that would limit reach out to homeless people, because, they already are not even aware of a lot of the resources that exist. So, or is this just targeted for police?
Well, there's an element of it that deals with the enforcement part of it. Overall, it basically prohibits enforcement of living in your car in a public place, right? So you can imagine beach towns are having a real issue with that. I could decide that I don't need to spend money and go to a hotel. I'm gonna live in my car on Rehoboth Avenue, right? But it also deals with some of the inner cities that have folks living on the sidewalk in front of some of these businesses, which is detracting away from businesses. So there's a coalition that's got an issue with this. The motivating factor behind this is the second time this bill's been introduced, but there was a significant component to this that limited our ability to address those issues, and that's really our primary concern. Our goal was never to respond to these calls and put handcuffs on people and take them to jail. We've created in our city at least an avenue where they have a resource, and that's happening all over the state. Every agency has their own way of dealing with this. And I'm not suggesting that there's language in the bill that prohibits that, but it monitors, and initially the bill created an oversight committee that actually had the ability to more or less, that had punitive language in it that said if somebody complained about us harassing somebody homeless, that there would be some consequences to that based on a committee that had nothing to do with law enforcement. So we've managed to get a large piece of that out, but you can see that where the genesis of this is to kind of limit our ability to address that.
Thanks for explaining that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Bertram, do you have anything for us tonight? All right, thank you. Okay, council communications, we'll start with Mr. Day.
Yeah, just a couple things. I'm happy to announce and see on the agenda the bathroom agreement. Thank you, Ms. Tantillo and Council President on working to get that done. It'll be nice to see it completed and us to be able to utilize the bathrooms. I also wanted to congratulate and say thank you for everyone that was part of the May Market. It was a beautiful day, beautiful setup. My wife and I went up and bought our plants and flowers. So I think that was a great event, but I also want to say thank you to everybody that, that's part of the farmer's market. It's obviously started again and is certainly a good addition to our town. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Selby?
During the election, I had a food drive. We actually had 301 pounds. So thank you for everyone that delivered food. I know we had a drive this past Saturday from the food bank, from the post office. From understanding, that was very successful. Day in Old Newcastle is Saturday. It's the 100th year. Please come on out. It starts at 10 o'clock. One of the key things that they're having is called the Wheelman. It's I guess it's a heritage American cycling. And they have cycles that from before 1932 that they're gonna have here that they'll be cycling around in. So it should be pretty cool. Question, the code alert. Street cleaning's upcoming next week. Would we be able to use the code alert on Sunday evening to let everyone know that it's happening?
Yeah.
That would be great, thank you. So Chief just talked about the parking closures. Do we have them on our website for things that are closed, and do we also get that in the weekly by chance?
So the separation day, map is out there that shows the area and the roads that are closed, and that's also on our website.
So it's not just for this, for like all like closures and situations. I know people who live in our town, especially new people that have moved in, they're not aware of when closures happen.
Yeah, as they come up on case by case basis, we do post them, yes.
All right, so I know if we can definitely get them on the website and eventually maybe even in the weekly, people will be aware. So,
Yeah, sometimes they're not, you know, so far in advance that we have them a whole week ahead, but what we do post, what we are able to, we do post.
excellent, thank you.
Mr. Stalker?
Good evening, everybody. First wanted to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who celebrate. Everybody does. We had a nice weekend celebrating mothers in our lives. So I hope you guys were treated nice and should every day of the week. Oh, sorry, forgot. Thank you. I won't repeat. I was just saying Happy Mother's Day before. Yeah, May Market, it was amazing. I second what Councilperson Day said. We bought the plants, enjoy the conversations. Now, the goal is not to kill those plants. Or at least plant them and find a home for them. So it's not, you know, my wife Lizzie was telling me weeks before, she was like, please just promise me you're not gonna buy crap ton of plants like you did last year that we couldn't do what we, you know, and of course I did, but you know, I brought my little pulley that kids use as a little stroller and we, you know, filled that up. But I did want to thank all the volunteers who, you know, donated their time and plans, and I understand there's other organizations outside of our borders of the city limits who donated, you know, plans and time as well for this. So thank you everybody for all the efforts, making not just, but all the events in Newcastle, amazing. I want to thank our city administrator for pushing the handicap programs. Just this week on West 5th Street where I live, we had a handicap curb installed in one of the places, and I'm looking forward for that work to continue elsewhere across the city. So that's just exciting to see that, you know, we can have a more safer environment for everybody to enjoy. I'm making an update right now on behalf of Encore. One of the neighbors was asking, did I need to come and, you know, provide an update? I was happy to take that. So as of today, Encore has raised a little over 1 million for the Battery Park Playground out of 1.2 million that is the goal for this phase 2. There are $70,000 from a shovel ready stage, so that's exciting. Hopefully, that's something that can be closed in soon, and I wanted to, not just for Encore, but all the other nonprofits, so recently Library and Friends created a fundraising effort for the capital project. So I just want to thank everybody for donating their time, donating their books or their valuables for people to bid on and raffle prices, and just generosity of many of our residents and friends for a lot of the things in our city. I wanted to echo what Councilperson Day said about bathroom, playground, and basketball court agreement. I'm looking forward for this to be finalized so that we can reinstate the bathrooms especially, and be able to assume that responsibility. I know that comes with maintenance added to our, but I think we can manage the capacity within our city staff. Just wanted to reiterate, be careful driving. I've been reaching out to the chief already myself about speeding and accidents and everything, but just want to remind everybody, let people buy you. It's not that important, right? Just be safe. And the two last things I wanted to say is, for the upcoming budget season, I truly hope that you guys are able to find time to attend some of our upcoming budget meetings. There's a lot of different things happening, because you guys are noticing. So just, we're presenting a lot, so please keep coming and asking questions that will help us, identify what we can do as a city to improve the quality of life for everybody. And just wanted to mention for tomorrow, what Antonina mentioned about property tax and gross rental tax. I'm looking forward to attending that meeting, one of the committee's meeting, to speak on behalf of gross rental tax alongside Councilperson Mattaway, so that hopefully we can convince some of the folks in Dover to, push these things out. And I believe Council President Souter and Council Member Day, is that correct?
Yes.
Is going to be speaking for the property tax alongside Antonina. So we are going almost entirely, lack of quorum. I think Councilperson Zelt will be there as well, but we're doing our best to make sure we represent the city. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Mr. Mattaway.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to add a few updates that I want to highlight. May the 24th is Shut-Off Day at 10 o'clock in the morning at the Delaware City Library. That day will commence a litany of events that will run through Sunday, June the 22nd. Be a number of community events concerning Juneteenth. So please be on the lookout for that information. Secondly, I wanted to highlight that Sunday, June 15th, will be the 101st St. Anthony's Day procession. So please put that on your calendars. Please come out. Please join with our Italian immigrant community that has been so integral into the development of the city of Newcastle. I also wanted to congratulate neighbors Terrence and Skylar Baco, who recently celebrated their nuptials. And then finally, in furtherance of some of the things that Chief has mentioned and others in regards to speeding, I recently did some research and came across some information that I wanted to share, and I'll be sure to share it with the Chief, City Administrator, Council, and the Mayor. The Delaware Department of Transportation has an electronic speed safety program, and it seems like Wilmington Road could potentially be an option for that program, where they would implement and pay for electronic speed monitoring systems to keep our neighbors and people that traverse through our community safe. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Mattaway. And I have a few things. First, I'd like to thank Mary Ann Caven and all the members of the Board of Elections and our poll workers for their work. It's a long day for them, but we had a well-run election. I'd like to also thank all the candidates who were willing to run for office. It takes some courage to put yourself out there, so thank you all. I also want to recognize the passing of a member of our community, retired Colonel Joseph D'Angelo. He passed away on April 17th after a long illness. In addition to his 38 years of service in the Delaware National Guard, he also served the community of Newcastle as a manager and umpire for our Little League, as a volunteer for St. Peter the Apostles Church, and in many roles with the St. Anthony's Club. He was a member of City Council from 1999 to 2005, and a member of the Planning Commission from 2005 to 2018. So as you can see, he had a long period of service to our community. He's survived by his wife Diane and his son Mark, who cared for him at home, and as well as many nieces and nephews. I also want to thank the Newcastle Library Friends for their work, especially President Matt Alexander and Vice President Jennifer Ramsdell. Thanks to them, the library will soon have a wonderful, accessible garden space for outdoor programming and providing a pleasant place to read in good weather. With the proceeds of the gala cocktail party held on April 26th, they hit their fundraising goals and now qualify for a $25,000 grant from the Welfare Foundation. So we hope the construction will begin this summer. And thanks also to everyone who contributed to that fund and participated in the gala, which was also a really fun event. And finally, I'd like to thank the trustees for returning picnic tables to Battery Park. There have been 3 installed so far, I think, and they planned for 6. Last year, our park was recognized by Delaware Today as the best place in Newcastle County for a picnic, and so now it'll be even better. So thank you, trustees. And business from the mayor.
Thank you. Good evening. I won't repeat everything that our council president, council members have said or echo them regarding May Market, Farmers Market, or Encore or anything else. They said it all, especially council president who, I thank her for the recognition of Mr. DeAngelo. And does anyone remember the Velocipede Museum?
Yes.
Yeah, so when you mentioned the Wheelman exhibit, it brought to mind the Velocipede Museum, which is where Zolly's is now, that was run by Mr. Jim Dempsey. Other than attending some budget meetings and the MSC, it was kind of a slow month for me. Last night, at the last minute, I had the pleasure of greeting the AJ Meerwald, who stopped here for an overnight down at the dock, and also meeting their new captain, Captain Fern Hoffman, and meeting the people that she was ferrying from the Cape May Point Arts and Sciences Council, that they were going from Cape May Point to Trenton, and they're all scientists aboard the ship. And it was very interesting. I met up with them and just have a chat. I have a proclamation tonight on behalf of the Board of Health, who wants to recognize Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health is a critical component of overall health and well-being of every individual, and attention to the mental health of every individual is crucial to having healthy families and a healthy community. And stopping, would you please come forward? It's your chair of the Board of Health. Thank you. I'm sorry. Whereas everyone has times in their lives when they experience stress and difficult situations, and with the prevalence of mental health issues in our country, it is critical for all community members to be aware of mental health conditions and know that there is help to handle the challenges to health and well-being that many of us face. And whereas the most effective way to lessen the burden of mental health issues is prevention, and when effective treatment is provided early, mental health issues can be resolved and individuals can go on to have a full and productive life. And whereas the greatest barrier preventing many individuals from seeking the help they require is the stigma surrounding mental health conditions, and whereas we recognize the importance of highlighting awareness, improving access to care, and supporting the mental health of our citizens through ongoing education efforts and open dialogue so that no one feels that they are alone. And whereas the Newcastle Board of Health has chosen mental health as its focus for the 2025 in order to increase awareness and help develop a supportive community. Now therefore, I, Valerie Leary, by virtue vested in me as mayor of the city of Newcastle, do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Gallagher, and your whole committee for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments of goodwill, Captain Moore?
Good evening, everybody. I apologize last month for not having the March report for you, but for this month, I did include the March report as well as April report. We have seen an increase in call volume for March and April in reference to the fire and EMS. It's been pretty busy EMS-wise for us. For us to reach close to 200 calls a month, that's pretty busy for us. And also, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just people are calling 911. In April, you will not see a fire report. We switched over the beginning of April to a new fire reporting system. We're fine-tuning that and getting that squared away in reference to being able to compile the reports so that they're very similar to the old fire reporting system. That way it kind of keeps everything nice and easy to read and the flow continues. We'll start with training at the end of April. Staff members as well as volunteers took a 2-day drafting class. This built upon what we did when we drafted from the river, I guess a year and a half ago, when we did that drill. So it just built upon that to fine tune the skills of drafting. Not that we do it very often, but when we do it, when we have to do it, we're able to do it, and we're able to provide constant water. You'll see throughout this month, more than likely next month, vehicles in the parking lot that have some cones around it. That's our vehicle rescue. We'll be doing training on vehicle rescue. So if you're out and about, whether it be daytime or nighttime, it all depends on the crew that's working. If you see them out, feel free to stop by, ask what's going on, ask about the tools. One thing that we want to do, we want to be transparent, and we want everybody to understand the reason why we do stuff. So if you have any questions, but you see them out there, stop by and they'll be more than happy to explain the reason why. Couple incidents that took place the end of April. We had an electrocution in the utility right away between Castle Hills and Swanwick. An individual was doing some tree work, saw came in contact with one of the electrical lines and caused him to get electrocuted. So while we were en route to the call, notification was made to Delmarva to shut down that grid and help to start the mitigation of that incident. When crews got there, they were able to talk to the individual. He was still able to talk and explain some stuff to us. We were able to get our ladder truck in to be able to get the person down, and where he was flown to a local helicopter, flown to a local hospital and for treatment, and also he's doing better. The other incident that just took place a couple days ago was came in as a structure fire in Center Point Industrial Park. Crews arrived to find a compact trash can in the rear of the building that's attached to the building that was on fire. Crews were able to pull the compactor away. The fire was isolated to the compactor. Smoke did get into the building. Crews ventilated the the building, and once that was done, crews had wrapped up, so there was no damage to the building. Everything was contained to the compactor. And lastly, you may have seen us out for Mother's Day and on Easter weekends selling flowers. We just want to thank everybody for their continued support. We understand everybody travels for Mother's Day and Easter, and you contribute in other ways. But overall, thank you for your continued support. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Captain. Okay, public comments, the usual rule, to amend the City of Newcastle Municipal Code by establishing a new Chapter 222, specific financial accounts regarding the creation of a budget stabilization fund and a capital and infrastructure fund. Okay, so now,
Thank you, Council President. I'll start, and I think Council Manoy will join in later. Before we open up for discussion with the council, I just wanted to kind of provide a little inspiration and, you know, like what was in intention behind this ordinance. So I kind of got inspired by looking at, you know, like when I joined the council 2 years ago, I've been looking at the budget and you're kind of looking for that area where we're putting money aside for strategic investments. And, you know, we have some stuff already in place, but I wanted to look at other places, how they formalize those processes. So I looked at the state, I looked at the counties, some municipalities, and, you know, kind of used, you know, a majority of this draft is, you know, using the language from Ocean View, actually, in Delaware, which had a, you know, a thought, and Councilperson Mataway, amazing way to kind of simplify for our city what we wanted to do. So that was kind of the inspiration behind, and in addition, kind of like reliance on the volatile revenue sources that are dependent on the general economy, housing market, you know, like, and under that, I mean, like property transfer tax that can go, you know, from $200 a year to $700. So like, that was kind of like, how do we not have as much reliance on that? We still want that money to use for reinvesting community, but it's more like, how do we not have to worry about what the housing market is going to be in a given year to be able to operate the city safely and kind of be good stewards of that. Franchise fees, you know, like Verizon, all those different things that kind of fluctuate based on the use. Like if you can think of anything that, you know, depends on the usage or, you know, market, that's kind of like the top there. What the ordinance does in creating stabilization fund and capital improvement fund, investment fund is, you know, like a ability for long-term planning. So one of the things that prescribes is, you know, for city administrator to create a 5-year projections on a capital project. So that's going to be one of those things that's exciting for me as a council person to see, you know, so we can not only plan for current fiscal year, but also we can start thinking about what is that coming down the pipeline in our budget. So it's going to be providing us a little more input on, you know, long-term planning that we can look beyond just, you know, 1 year and be able to, you know, adjust expenditure and revenue size to kind of meet those things. And the same thing with the resilience, you know, fund, the stabilization fund is kind of like to provide that resilience to the city, where from year to year it's difficult to, you know, what we budget and what the actual expenditures differs a lot, right? So like we are budgeting right now for 7.2 million in this current fiscal year. We're probably going to be close to, like, you know, our expenditures are much different because things don't get done in a given year, they get carried over. So like, you know, it would help with some of those things where we have a difficult budget shortfall, and then you can lean into these funds to say, okay, like, let's use this as a fund that can help us, you know, use some more money in this fund to you know, close those gaps. You know, it talks a little bit about investment policy, how to kind of invest the, you know, money. But I think city administrator is working a little more on the actual investment policies. I'm not going to touch upon that, but it's just kind of like prescribing smaller details about, you know, like how to take money out of the funds and stuff. So that's kind of my introduction. I don't know if the councilperson Natalie wanted to add anything to that, and then happy to talk more.
Sure, thank you, and I'll just highlight a couple things. So the concept of a budget stabilization fund or the concept of a capital improvement fund, they are not novel to governments, whether they're country governments state governments or local municipality governments. This is something that has been implemented by Newcastle County. It's something that's implemented by several municipalities across our state. It's also something that has become a best practice and is taught in academia. So for example, at the Biden School of Public Administration and Policy, these are the types of tools and strategies that professors are mandating and talking about. Additionally, what the creation of these funds allows the city to do is to broaden its horizons and to get away from what we have today. And what I mean by that is simply a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, right? It allows us to have a little bit of a broader vision and to bifurcate certain allocations of money for certain things. The capital, the capital reserve, for example, is not novel to Newcastle. Resolution number 21-10 was signed into power was signed March 2011. And the city council, or the city of Newcastle at that time, established the capital improvement fund, and they funded it with $125,000. And today, in 2025, that account has $125,000. So this is trying to take forward and to carry forward what previous councils had the mindset to do and the vision to do, but to actually craft it out and to be purposeful and to do it. Another thing in regards to the budget stabilization fund, our costs as a city, having two unions, et cetera, many people know and it's been talked about, have dramatically increased. And so those are fixed costs that we need to make sure that we can pay for and maintain. So I'll stop there and welcome the conversation and discussion by everyone.
As I stated in public comment, we need to put some terms in here. Is there a proposal for 22-3? It says beginning in fiscal year 2027, X% of the property transfer tax going on to 2028, and C is fixed beginning in fiscal year 2029, 50% of the property transfer tax revenues. The same goes for 22-10. Do you have an initial percentage that you want to use for 2027 or propose for 2027 or 2028?
Yes, we do. The proposal open for discussion for, it would be the same for both sections, for both funds. For 2027 will be 12.5%. 25 for
27.
For year 20, fiscal year 27 would be 12.5%.
And 28?
For 28 would be 25%. And then there will be actually under C for the 2029 reduction from 50 to 37.5%. That applies to both.
So can we have a motion to amend the ordinance?
Motion to amend the ordinance to add to insert 25.
12.5.
Sorry, 12.5% for fiscal year 2027. 25% for fiscal year 2028, and 37.5% for fiscal year 2029.
And that will be for sections 22-3.
For sections 22-3 as well in budget stabilization fund, as well as section 222-10 for the capital improvement fund, investment fund.
You have a motion, and is there a second? That's just to set those rates. Sorry, Madam Chair, I took your thunder. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So it's been moved and seconded to make those amendments, and we can now proceed with the discussion.
I would vote on the amendments.
Oh, okay. So all in favor
Is there any discussion on the amendments?
Yeah, you can discuss the amendment, sure.
All right,
okay.
so we'll be discussing only the amendments at this point, not
Correct,
the whole.
not the whole ordinance. That's what I was getting at, sorry, Councilman Day.
That's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'll just start, I like both of the funds set up, but I do have some concerns about doing these outside of the budget, because that's really what we're doing at this point, we're not seeing the whole picture. But in 222-3, method of funding, so in A, B, and C, FY 27, 28, 29, even if we left them all at 50% of the property transfer tax, that would give us about $250,000 a year in the fund. So, but just prior to that, in 22 or 222-2, you're saying that by FY 29 we need to be 50% of the city's budget, which I believe is about $3.5 million. So we're putting ourselves in a position where going into FY 29, we're literally going to have to put millions of dollars in the fund that we may not be allocating. And again, I'm in favor of both of these. I just think we need to have the conversation while we're talking at the budget meetings, and so we can get the percentages right for this year and going forward. At least going forward, you have time. We could rewrite the resolution. But for this year, and I do have some concerns about that. I will also say when I was going through for the capital and infrastructure fund, I see is added, but in section 3 it actually says an initial deposit into a capital and infrastructure fund created pursuant to this ordinance of $500,000 must be included in the annual operating budget for FY 26. So I don't see where it says that in the code itself. But again, these are all questions that I have that I think we just need to talk it out through the budget and see where the numbers lie. I'm in favor of it, but I would rather do it through the budget process. Maybe after 1 or 2 of our budget meetings, so we can make sure the numbers look right.
Absolutely.
That's the only issue I
I
have.
can speak to like both section 2 and section 3 under 222-12 of that ordinance. We're initially following up to like where you saw like the percentages. It was just after that, but it got moved on recommendation to the end of the ordinance. So yeah, it's a little, you see that first, and then in the end, addresses kind of how it's gonna be funded. So basically, what the, section 2 says that initial deposit in the budget stabilization fund created pursuant to this ordinance in the amount of 50% of the approved operating budget FY 26 will be included. So basically what that does is, it says out of money market retention. So basically, it would already set it up. If we go for this ordinance, it would use money market retention funds. So it would not be something that we have to, it would just reduce that $9 million that we have right now and move it into that restricted area that would be for that fund, basically. That's what it does. So like, it will be fully funded right now if we go in.
But that to me is not what this ordinance says. It just says we'll put 50% of the budget. It doesn't say where it's coming from.
To be allocated from the city's money market retention appropriation is the end of that sentence, in section 2, yeah.
And so that's where we have the unrestricted.
But that's what I'm saying, I'm assuming it
But
just
then
moves from
once we
unrestricted because it's
lock
not
it
prescribed.
into this fund, we can only take it out for these purposes listed in this ordinance. So you're really locking us in with big chunks of money at a time when we're still trying to come up with a budget that doesn't have to draw down reserves. And you're taking those reserves sort of off the table, it sounds like.
Not necessarily, that can be one way of seeing it, but, under expending of funds, basically, there's 2 different ways to do it. So under, option A, under subsection 222-4, it's basically natural disaster allowed for, if there's a state of emergency issue, like flooding, whatever, there's no, basically, fund can be emptied out. So there's no limitation there. And then under A3, it says fund expended for VSF under this section shall not exceed 100%, basically can be up to 100% of the balance contained therein, and shall be expended only for those purposes approved by a majority of the members elected to the city council. And then under subsection B, it just says that, if there's now a budget shortfall, so like now it's second subsection, if there's a budget shortfall, for example, it would just borrowing, I guess, from this fund shall not exceed 10% of the city's operating budget. So that depends on the year to year, right? So that's, you know, for this particular fiscal year, what is our budget currently proposed? 7.5, so that would be $750,000 roughly. That would be the 10% that we're talking about. So like, you could still take out $750,000 out of this current fund. And once again, we're here to discuss these percentages, and, you know, like, this is just something that we took from Ocean View, you know, work with percentages, and, you know, we're happy to discuss, you know, any movement along that. But it doesn't restrict it in a sense, because we haven't used more than 10% in most of the years, right? But this past year was the only one that we probably used more than that. So that's just kind of, yes, correct, that it's restricted, but $750,000 used from your stabilization fund is significant, I think, chunk of money, but once again, it can be changed. So to answer the first question, Councilperson Day said it would be fully funded, both of them would be fully funded immediately, just basically, we would just earmark it for these funds. But then to answer the second question, it's somewhat restricted, but, open for the other.
So,
That makes sense.
I'm a visual person.
Hmm?
Can we get a spreadsheet to kind of show some of these projections and maybe different percentages to show how this could impact us? I need examples, because I'm not, there's a lot of words, but I don't see how this is all getting funded. I don't see exactly dollar amounts. It's something that you can maybe put in a spreadsheet to help us show how this will work.
I mean, it's here in the language, so I mean, I don't know how to, I mean, I can visualize it, for sure. But on the expending of funds B3, it talks about no more than 25% of an authorized DSF withdrawal in any given fiscal year may be utilized to support personnel costs, including payroll or costs associated with labor contract negotiations, unless approved by anonymous vote. And I would want to move to change the anonymous to major. I spoke to our council to change that to majority vote. So that'd be another amendment I would like to propose later. For purpose of this section, personnel costs include but are not limited to salary, wages, benefits, bonuses, and financial commitments related to city's collective bargaining agreements. So this subsection expands that 10% for the different use to, you know, 25%, which, you know, we're not talking about $2 million for the given, you know, for our current fiscal year, close to $2 million.
Again, I'm gonna go with Mr. Zell here. I think it would be really good to have a spreadsheet that shows specific examples, maybe even using our proposed 2026 budget, or using this year's just for an example. But I also don't understand why you want to take money out of the budget, out of our budget, when our unrestricted funds, our reserves are somewhat there. That's why we create these reserves, so that if something major were to happen, we have that money there. So, but I'm with them on the spreadsheet, because again, it's word salad. You may see it as clear as day in your head, but it's kind of word salad, and I don't know what other people in the audience are, but if you saw it up on the screen, I think it would, well, you can't see it now, it's not there. I mean, if you saw a spreadsheet up on the screen, there would be a significant better understanding of what it is you're looking for.
I will just say quickly, this is just formalizing what you just said, you know, this is, I'm not saying that reserve currently that we use, it's pretty much just putting regulations in place for how to treat the reserves in a way, like, or, you know, like it basically it says that we have to have, so what we don't have right now, for example, in our reserves, is what the stabilization does is to say, has to be 6 months worth, 50% worth of the fiscal year, right? So like, what that ensures is that we have a, you know, 6 months worth of operating cost, should anything happen to some major economy, whatever, right? So that we can, you know, operate as a city. And that already exists, but this just formalizes that, to make sure that it doesn't go below that number. So if we're ever to say, we spend, out of our 9 million, we want to spend 6, this would prevent it to spend 6 unless that is one of these needs identified in here to say, and then puts a plan in here to replenish that fund in years to come. So that's just the, you know, the mechanism to make sure that we are leaving the budget in it for the generations to come, to say you have at least 6 months worth of operating cost in there, you know. So it's not an issue right now, right, because we have way more than that in our reserves, but it's just kind of setting it up for years when we might have to work on securing that balance. I mean, I hope it's never close to 50%, and we always have more than 50%, but it's just a tool that formalizes that, I guess. Sure. Sorry, Councilman.
No, go ahead, Councilperson Day.
The one question I have, if we fully fund it up front, and then we're gonna feed it with the property transfer tax money, like, well, what's the goal then? So are we just gonna keep feeding it every year, or are we gonna maintain it at 50% of our overall budget? Like, what's the idea here?
Yeah, I think the idea is it would be challenging, to your point, to get it to 50% otherwise, right? We would have to be very aggressive and increase these percentages way more significantly, right? So that is great situation that we're in right now, that we have the ability to fund it initially. So the idea there was to leave, you know, some of the money to be, from the property transfer tax, to be used for, you know, continuing operating expenses, but then feed it for those inflationary factors, so that it's always at 50%. Hopefully, you know, as we're growing the budget every year, it will, just because of, right, everything is going up, oil prices, everything's going up. It kind of allows that fund to grow to be 50%, so that we're complying with that. Now, it might be a washout if we're adding, but then also taking off, but then we're gonna have to probably just adjust things as we go along to say, okay, let's try to figure out the ways of making sure that this is funded, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's just the idea behind it, to make sure that we have 6 months worth of revenue. Once again, I hope we never get close to 50%, but you know, that's the reason why it's trying to put money in there, because it's anticipating us as a body, not us people, but council as a body, to come in and say, oh, we're having shortfall $200,000, and this fills in that need, right?
Yeah, just a couple thoughts. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just said, yeah, sorry.
Just a couple of thoughts. One is, maybe if we fully fund it up front, then after that, instead of saying it's 12.5%, 25%, and 37.5% of the property taxes, transfer taxes, maybe we say we allocate 100% of the property transfer taxes over what we've budgeted for that year to go into that count. So then it just seems like it gives us a little cushion in case we don't get to where we need to. And we could still talk about a percentage if we were under the 50% mark.
I love that. I mean, Ocean View does exactly that. They have made a intentional decision in 2013 or 11, don't quote me on the year, to not rely at all on, when they adopted this stabilization fund in their city. They made a, you know, decision of the council not to rely on this at all, right? And there were several concerns that they had. There's not many parcels to be, you know, built or sold, so like it was kind of like one of those things. It's great right now, but the fund eventually, you know, is going to start dwindling down. So like it was just kind of one of those things where they thought about it, future, you know, ways of kind of tackling. So I fully support that idea, because, you know, less we rely on that fluctuation that we have year to year, then you know, more you have ability to kind of know market stuff is stuff, right? So like this year we collected 480, last year 750, year before that, I don't know, 250. So that's a challenging thing with that as a council member to rely and you know, budget around. So I absolutely agree on that. So, Councilperson Natalie, I'm talking.
I just have one last question. It's actually for Max. So, Max, what is our ability to discuss, if we didn't make this decision tonight, what's our ability to discuss it in our budget meetings? I assume if we advertise it as part of the budget meeting, we can discuss it? Because obviously, I think you gotta look at this as a whole with the budget, not like piece by piece.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because you put it on the agenda, you can discuss it.
Okay.
You've had your public hearing on the issue. You've had the ability to do that. You can put it on the agenda, discuss it, and technical terms pass, but I don't like to use that, but for consideration at a future meeting, if you did it. Now, the reason I stood up here, and I usually don't, is because we have a motion that's been seconded that's on the table. So I want to deal with that motion as second, and then if there was a further motion to table or otherwise, then we would deal with that at that time.
Okay.
So
Yeah, in the discussion, we haven't really touched on the percentages that Mr. Zabaka suggested.
So-
Does anybody have comments specifically
So-
about those?
So Mr. Zabaka, Mr. Lanaway, do you want to continue forward with your motion, or do you seek to withdraw it based upon the discussion points?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so, I think, so I was actually thinking and wondering the same thing that Joe had just asked. From my perspective, the goal of this was to get this out there in the atmosphere as we look ahead toward the budget season, with the idea and recognition that we had to have a first reading and a second reading, and being able to potentially implement this in enough time, and to get this out there in everyone's perspective so that we can draw upon everyone's perspectives to make this the most comprehensive, thoughtful document that it can be. So that was my, thought in trying to be supportive of putting this forward. I am in support of what Councilperson Day and others have mentioned in regards to working it into the budget. And I would just say, just give two examples. So right now we say we have $8.7 million in money market retention. But we all know that the best practice is to have 6 months to a year in reserves. So optically, we think we had $8.7 million as like a general slush fund, but we really don't when we take that into consideration. And this is an effort to bifurcate that and put that off to the side.
Just to your point, I just want to note that we still have the remainder of this fiscal year that is in that total amount, and we have the money that we've taken for the ARPA funds that we are moving off for future projects. So it just
Thank you.
leaves us with about 5.5.
Right. So then I would also just note for the record, page 49 of the 2020 comprehensive plan, it says as a strategy for the city to develop a capital improvement program identifying desirable physical street improvements throughout the city. So yes, we want to do that, but you can't have a capital improvement program without capital improvement dollars, right? And so we're trying to marry the two. But I personally, given the council's question, do move to remove.
You just withdraw your motion.
To
You
withdraw
your second.
To carry it forward in the
Yep.
continuum.
So your motion is to set the percentages, so you're gonna withdraw that motion?
Yes, because, yeah.
Withdraw that motion, so I'm trying to help you through, I think I got consensus here. So the motion would be to further discuss the ordinance at the next budget meeting and have it considered at a future council meeting.
Yes, now, the next budget meeting is Thursday, and it's not
Okay.
on the agenda, so it has to
And
be
then
the next one.
at the next appropriate
Right.
budget meeting.
Okay, with appropriate notice.
Can I add to that motion just to change the
I
anonymous
just
stuff?
offered it. You
No, I
can-
know, but can we also amend it to change the anonymous, because that's one of those things that, that speaks to, this is limiting, right, the councils, but changing this from anonymous, this was language that, you used in.
All right, but
motion.
that's a
So
separate
if we can-
amendment.
I know, but I'm saying, it's just basically changing the language, because I can't change
Why
it,
not?
present a change to
Why
you.
don't you change that the next time after you've had your discussion? Because you're gonna discuss it, and you're gonna talk
Oh, I
about
see.
changes.
We gotta make changes in it.
Basically, I was just trying to, I anticipate that comment anyway, so I was just trying to change it now. Figured it would be.
I would recommend doing all of your changes at once.
Okay, so we've had a first and a proposal to withdraw the amendment and a second to withdraw the amendment.
So
All
now,
in favor of withdrawing the amendment, setting the specific percentages that Mr. Subaka mentioned earlier?
Aye.
Okay, so that is withdrawn. And then we have a second sort of motion
I'm gonna offer a proposed motion to continue discussion of the proposed ordinance at the next appropriate budget meeting, and to consider the ordinance at a future council meeting.
Okay.
So you can say-
So who would like to make the motion as put forth by Mr. Wall?
Motion to, would like to make a motion to, continue the discussion of this ordinance at a next appropriate budget, meeting, and consider the ordinance at future council meetings.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're finished with this for this evening.
Thanks, Max. It's always a joyful ride for many portions of ordinances.
And I guess, yes, is it possible between now and then to come up with some kind of a spreadsheet that, or flow chart that would show how much we work, that might make it easier for people to visualize?
We can share some samples.
Yeah, we can attempt working on that, yeah, I mean,
Gives you
whatever
some
makes it
time.
easier, yeah, and then also I would ask for the next appropriate budget meeting, Antonina, if you could have a version proposed of the budget just, but also have a second version that would show money market reduced. For proposed amounts, I don't want to discuss the actual amounts as a part of the meeting, but just kind of to aid individuals. I think that would be helpful as well. So
Yes.
the capital $100,000 is shown as a line, increase from 125, and then 3.5. That would be great as a part of the visual, so it can be part of that presentation.
Sure.
Thanks.
And with that, if we get an example of maybe like 2 years out, money comes out of it, and then how we refund, so that we can understand that, thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the agreement with the trustees regarding the bathrooms, playground, and basketball courts in Beverly Park. The council has in their packet a copy of this agreement. It's been negotiated over, I'll just say, an extended period of time with the trustees. It proposes, if I may attempt a summary, that the city will take over the management of the bathroom facilities, the playground, within the footprint of the current playground, and the basketball court. In preparation for this, the trustees have installed, improved security cameras around the bathroom. They agree that they will, do the routine maintenance and provide paper products for the restroom facilities, but the city will be responsible for any extraordinary cleaning or damages. Some of those, of course, could be submitted to insurance if there's vandalism or so forth. And I think that was a provision for some funds, yes.
I don't think they're making the camera improvements, they're giving us the money to make the camera improvements.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, that's all right, thank you for that
Yeah.
correction. So, yeah, we're going to arrange it, but they're going to give us a contribution
It's our vendor, yes.
to help pay for it, $11,600. Did I miss anything? So, and it also provides, this agreement may not be amended without the consent of their parties, of the two parties. And the city will keep liability insurance in place for these facilities, which we already have, is that correct?
Correct.
So the main additional thing we would have to budget for is the maintenance, if there were extraordinary maintenance costs.
And that's included in the proposed budget.
And that, okay, that is included in the budget. So is there any further discussion of this proposed agreement from council?
I would just, like to thank Council President and Councilperson Day, as well as, City Administrator Santillo for, working on this. And I want to say publicly, and also would like to, thank the trustees of Newcastle Common.
Yeah, I can't, I'm just gonna, join the, thanks, because this was a process that needed to happen, and, I'm glad that both sides were, willing partners at the table and having an open mind to, discuss these transitionary items. So, I'm happy that this is one of those hopefully, another starts between the city and trust, in our future, collaborations on projects like this. I have two questions, and hopefully they're easy answers, but it's just, page 2 of their contract, sorry, this is Matt's question.
You just said that.
Can we,
You're asking me, I
okay.
could.
It says the city will complete a planned 3 camera surveillance system upgrade for the bathroom facilities. My question here is, and this doesn't have to be necessarily part of their agreement, but can we do because we're assuming maintenance for the playground, basketball, and bathroom, so this is not a contract, sorry, can we do this as well for the other 2 facilities, just so we have an eye on those facilities too?
Yeah, we can discuss this, with the trustees, representatives, and, there is discussion of. So,
I don't think they will hold up this contract, this is just a question if we can restart a second.
yeah, number 8, additional improvements. So, at a time we decide to have additional security measures, we can discuss that with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that will fall under that would be great too.
It wouldn't necessarily be done immediately, but it could
Yeah,
be
it's
part of
not,
the
yeah,
ongoing.
exactly. My last question is regarding the Exhibit A that was provided with the map of the playground. I see that the site survey was done in 2018. I think this is appropriate map for the playground because, we reverted from COVID back to the original map that was before pandemic, so being that this is 18, it looks correct. I just wanted to kind of make sure that it is, so that the borders we have right now with the, you know.
Yes, the intent of that exhibit was, mostly for the, in addition to the location, the stormwater, and, making sure that we knew the locations of that.
Yeah, part of the agreement is that the city will take care not to damage the storm drain system that the trust installed under
Yes.
under the battery. And I think that's why this is dated 2018, because that's when that was done.
Mhm.
So this wasn't so much about delineating the playground as it was to show us where the storm system, drain system is, so we know where we can't dig and other things that would damage it. But it's deep enough, that, for example, that trucks can drive across it without damage.
I know, but one of the first items in our contract talks about battery park also includes playground, with including equipment and water depicted in Exhibit A. So I just want to make sure that we're committing to the playground orders that we have right now. So I think, I'm sure it's already, that is it, but I just want to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves in the scope. Well, that's all.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, let me see, on the first page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, says, whereas the playground facilities were originally installed in 2022, which is of course the phase 1,
Correct.
with grant funding from the Delaware Division of Parks and Recreation and are in the process of being expanded to include additional playground equipment and landscaping improvements. So there, to me, that's referencing the playground as it exists today.
Correct,
And
because there was.
incorporating the plans for for phase 2.
Yeah, like when we put the border during phase 1, that was in coordination with the trust to make sure that the top, if you're looking at your exhibit, guys, the top of the northern part of the map, sorry, I don't know how else to say it, that part of the page is wider, that, you know, like, where the phase 2 would be accommodated when the ship is currently. It is right now, but I'm saying, I just wanna make sure the survey is, like, the borders are accommodating for phase 2 right now. Just wanna make sure that the map is, I think it is, but just,
Yeah, we'll confirm.
thanks.
Madam President, I'd just like to, just a couple words, too.
Sure.
I'd like to thank the trust, specifically Tommy Wilson and Pete Toner. We worked with him, he was very amicable, we appreciate it, we're glad, hopefully we'll have the bathrooms open for a day in Old Newcastle. I anticipate if it gets passed tonight that we will. So again, we appreciate their, working with us on this.
Yes. Any other comments or questions? Do we need a formal vote or simply a consensus that we,
You need a vote on the contract.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion, we approve the contract.
okay, is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Does anybody have a snack? I'm just like,
All right. The next item is the discussion of a City of Newcastle Legacy Fund with the Delaware Community Foundation. This is, I guess it's not an ordinance, it's just the discussion and the agreement. And again, Ms. Chantillo, Mr. Mataway, I know you've been working on this and talking with people from the Delaware Community Foundation. Do you have introductory remarks?
Yeah, if I may, I just want to pick up where we left off at the last meeting. We discussed, the different options that Ms. Garza, presented to us for the fund, and the, potential agreement at the time. And, you gave me the charge of Mr. Mataway and Ms. Garza, DCF, to go ahead and draft up an agreement. And then from there, we would present you an agreement, and then at a future date, we can, present an ordinance that would put parameters around the fund. So this is just step one of this process. We've been working on for a while. So we have in front of you a draft agreement, which, you know, we've talked through for some time now. We, have named it the Newcastle Agency Fund, and we have chosen to invest in the flagship pool, which was the recommendation of Ms. Garza, to, you know, give us the best return on investment, for the time being and be less restrictive. And I believe one of the questions that came up at the last meeting, I'm having a blank on what it was.
Yeah, from what I recall, one of the questions was, if the fund would be, an endowed or not.
Yes, thank you.
And so the endowed, I'm sorry, I apologize. The questions were endowed versus non-endowed, essentially, speaking to the city's or the city council's ability to access the funds and what it's for, et cetera. And so this draft agreement speaks to it and identifies it as an unendowed fund, which means that the city has essentially free reign and access to it, assuming pursuant to the ordinance that will be drafted later, where it would be adopted by the majority of council, and the city administrator Chantillo or her successor would be the agent to the request of funds. Additionally, in referencing to the flagship pool, fiscal year to date, the flagship pool has yielded 6.38% year to date. At the 5-year mark, it has yielded 11.01%. It's a mixed bag of U.S. equities, non-U.S. equities, some alternative investments, fixed income, etc. Currently, right now, the city of Newcastle just has checking and savings accounts. The city has no money invested into the financial markets right now. The city of Newcastle's charter reads that the city to receive devices, bequests, gifts, donations of all kinds, property within said city and beyond the limits thereof, for its use and its benefit in trust or charitable, benevolent, educational, or other public purposes, and to do all things necessary to carry out the purposes of such devices, bequests, gifts, and donations. It's simply not our expertise. We don't even have the ability to accept stock right now. And this would be a mechanism in which people could charitably donate. Ms. Chantillo and I happened to run into Police Chief Majewski earlier this week, and he was telling us a story of how a local firehouse in the state was a recipient for funds that essentially from private donors that allows it to run independently. And that was unpromptedly, did you say that? Is that accurate?
Yeah, it was a wonderful story about how someone had, you know, left their life to the fire department, and they were able to help them run successfully and not have to rely on outside sources of funding. And it was definitely inspiring for other people, and, you know, really told the story of the woman's life and her commitment to that fire department.
Right. And so the city received a $10,000 seed donation from an anonymous donor, and the request on the table since, I guess about December or so, was for the city to fund the remaining $15,000. In regards to the draft agreement, I think we would make a request for an adjustment to include all members currently on council in regards to number 6, in respect to the associates. So we would want to strike that, include all members by name of council, and the associate essentially gives everyone the ability to access the statements and to view activity. Ms. Santillo came up with the recommendation of a draft ordinance subsequent to this, in which council would be provided, or required to be provided, quarterly statements, if you will, that would be affixed to the city packet. Is that accurate?
Correct, yeah.
Mr. Zelt, did you have any questions or comments? I have a couple of questions. So, aside from this initial 15,000, because I understand the minimum required to establish such a fund is 25,000, and we have the 10 in donation, would you envision the city adding other public funds to this reserve, or this legacy fund in the future?
I'm unsure. I haven't thought that far.
Okay.
But I do think it's valuable to not have all your money in checking and savings accounts.
Okay, but this money is not FDIC insured, is that correct? Every time, with my own personal investments, it always says, caution, equities, these kinds of funds are not insured by the FDIC. So is there any kind of insurance on these funds if the stock market were to crash?
Well, there's thresholds. So if you have $100 million in a checking account, all your $100 million is not.
I
It's not
understand
insured.
that, right, I understand
Okay.
that, but in this, none of it is insured by FDIC, is that right?
I can't speak to that. What I do know is that within the pool, there's always a certain cash allocation, right? And if the cash oftentimes are in money market funds or sweep deposits, those things would be.
Okay, but the bulk of the money would be in equities, right? Because the sweep
Yes.
accounts ebb and flow, those are usually
Yes.
just like overnight or for short periods of time, right?
Yes, we do have with us Ms. Brzwara here, and to whatever extent she feels comfortable. If there's any questions at the end, we'd love for her to speak to any of them. If Council President would allow.
Well, yes, can I ask one more question before then? I know there are various organizations that manage these type of funds. So how did you come to choose the Delaware Community Foundation? Did you compare fees and services with other organizations and choose this one because you thought they were the best? And could you tell us about that process?
Yes. So the Delaware Community Foundation is a 501(c) organization that is the premier think tank not only in Delaware but in the region. We serve many roles, all of which have the primary focus of strengthening Delaware through community and based philanthropy. They have over $300 million in their stewardship, and they partner with a publicly traded company for investments, where the company manages over $1 trillion.
I know they have a large amount of money in their investment portfolio, but my question was, did you compare them with any other organizations that provide similar services and compare their fees, compare their rate of return, and how did you choose Delaware Community Foundation over the other funds, other organizations that do the same process?
Yeah, the Delaware Community Foundation is a unique organization, and they're the best at what they do in this region. There are certainly money managers like any type of bank out there or a registered financial agent that can manage money. Their service and what differentiates them is their ability to match people that have philanthropic minds to specific types of philanthropic efforts. Additionally, their mission is community-based and not to make as much money in terms of they're not on commissions like many of these other types of financial service agencies, et cetera. And they have a local presence. They're people, they're real, they're tangible, and they're accountable. Ms. Tintilla, did you want to speak to any more of?
I did do a little bit of research for a similar organization. I didn't find one locally. There was another organization in another state, but I wasn't able, their information wasn't as accessible as the Delaware Community Foundation was.
So, am I understanding correctly that you're saying there really is no other organization in this area that provides this level of service?
Yeah, that I've been able to find.
Okay. I mean, when we make a big contract to do a road project, we get 3 bids. And I just wanted to do a similar process for something like this before we hand over our money.
Understood, absolutely.
Just a couple questions, Madam President.
Sure. go ahead.
So I would agree that the Delaware Community Foundation is an exemplary organization, and I do support this. I think this does give us the ability, with their help, to match donors, to be able to make charitable donations to the city, whether it's through a stock market donation or through their will. Many different avenues that we can collect money. So I do agree with it, but what I'll say is the same thing I said on the last ordinance. I would much rather do this in the context of the budget. So if we pass this tonight, would this come out of this year's budget, or would it come out of next year's budget?
That's up to you. If you want to make a budget reallocation from this year's budget, we can do that. Or we can build it into next year's budget. But the $10,000, anonymous donation that was given to us would have to be returned.
And what was the deadline for that one?
The end of the fiscal year.
So June 30.
Correct.
Yes.
And we would need to know well before then, so that we can get the check if it can be out of our account.
So I know that this has been on the table for discussion for a number of months, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Councilperson Day. I believe at the last session or discussion, you charged myself and Ms. Tintilla with potentially identifying a category in which monies could be taken from. I don't want to say, excuse me, taken from is not, I apologize for saying that, where monies could be sourced from. And I believe we have identified a line item in the budget that has $60,000 in it, and none of the $60,000 have been used to date.
From the current budget?
Yes,
So
sir. Yes,
I'm in
sir.
favor of, if we wanna make a budget amendment and do it in the current budget, I'm okay with that. If we are talking about it for next year's budget, I think again, we need to talk about it with all the rest of the pieces for next year's budget.
Yes, sir. The intention was this year's budget in timeliness to coincide with the charitable donation that exalts June 30th. Is that right?
I just to add to that, I agree with this idea of using this year's unspent, different projects that were allocated but not going to be spent or something, just to make the FY26 conversation separate from this, so it's easier and now adding to that commitment, but and also due to the donation of $10,000 to help start this fund. I am looking at the, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Antonina and Councilperson Mataway for drafting the terms of use and a back page and providing this is very helpful. Looking at the donors currently who you can kind of fund right now, and there's a lot of schools, there's a lot of museums in Delaware. There's Cape Henlopen State Park here, so it does seem like it's widely used. The 4-H Foundation, right? So it's used widely by a lot of different funds or foundations in the state. So that's a good sign I think we all have seen, I love the fact that they stay kind of with their word, in a sense, like I've been tracking since we got introduced to them, like, what do they do? And I love the fact that they do scholarship for kids, or they help with homeless things. So I do think that, I like the fact that they put money back in the community, so that was something that I really loved seeing, from that perspective, and really respected it. And one of the things I was just initially thinking, we should connect them with trust to, for the scholarship, and try to make sure that kids in our, neighborhoods are, knowing about these opportunities as well. That aside, I think it's a great opportunity for us to, potentially be able to receive gifts that we're not able to receive right now, and also have them managed by a team of expertise, that, team at the city administration building is it's great, but, we have two people, right, or one person really coordinate that will be managing that, so I think that's the service that is worth, trusting DCF to do the right thing, so. And then, I'm concerned about the market too, the council president's comment, but I see this one of those things, like, invest in it, and I don't know what Councilperson Mattaway thought about future investment, right, but it's one of those things that I don't necessarily think we may invest into this unless we see this portfolio doing really great, and then we say, oh, we could do even better if we, that there's a higher return than what we have in our current, portfolio. But it's one of those things where I'm thinking, invest 25,000 or 15 as a city, forget about it, and 10, 20 years from now, say, okay, like councils down the road can enjoy the benefits of this fund that, immediate market might not respond to favorably to, next year return. I'm not an expert, but, it's one of those things that, the name legacy, I think it's meant to kind of help
Yes.
get stuff down the road.
This
So
is a
that's
long-term
Yeah.
investment, not something to balance the budget in 2 years.
Exactly.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of how I see it. That was just, I wanted to provide that perspective, that was me, kind of
Sure.
like 15,000 and forget it, and see hopefully.
Just to get down to the practicalities of it. If we have to have this done by June 30, and we need an ordinance, if we agree to this tonight, then we need an ordinance. An ordinance has to have a first reading and a second reading, which means we're gonna have to put this into some special meetings with the budget. Because is there a minimum amount of time we have to have, Mr. Wall, between the first reading and the second reading?
7 days.
7 days, okay. So we could have a first reading next month, or next week, I mean, because we have time to get it on the agenda. And,
So the, next, we can have a first reading at the budget,
Yeah.
either one. We could have it at the June 10th council meeting or the budget meeting on the 11th. And then we have, plenty of other meetings in December,
right, for the second reading.
for the
of our-
budget. So we have the 18th, the 25th, the 26th, the 30th.
And we have to have a public hearing before the second
Correct.
reading.
Yes, so there should be time for
So
that.
we'd have to bundle that in with our budget meetings.
Correct.
So the readings that we've had before don't count?
Now for an ordinance, we haven't drafted the ordinance. We have to
Because
do
you gotta
that.
allocate the budget money,
Right.
is what the ordinance is for, right?
The ordinance would just, further define the parameters of how the council wants to use the funds, and how to, like, the processes.
And should
So
be
how, council can have a discussion, we would set up parameters to say, council makes a motion to, withdraw from this account for this capital project. Then that motion, would be carried on by the city administrator and the finance officer, who would contact DCF and draw the funds out of the account and move the project forward, things like that. That's what the ordinance would
In
say.
terms of moving the money from one line
In
item.
terms of moving.
That's a resolution, right?
We can do it via
Because-
resolution, or we can do it via a motion.
You can move money based upon the motion. don't
So if
need a
you
full
choose-
resolution.
Okay.
If you choose to do that tonight, you're welcome to do that. What Councilperson Mattaway was referring to was that employee retention line of 60,000 that we budgeted for in this FY 25 current budget. We have not used that amount this year, so if you wanted to reallocate 10,000 to put towards this fund, 15, I'm sorry, thank you, we can do that.
Okay, so that could be part of, like, the same night time we do the first reading, for example, or.
We could do it then, we could do it
Or we
today.
could do it right now.
Now to
Sure.
create 15,000 out of the employee retention fund.
Second.
No, do it.
Approve the agreement,
And then do it.
Okay.
and if you wanna do that, you can do it.
You mean approve it at the next meeting?
No,
right now, right,
Okay,
right.
I thought, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to, allocate 50. I would like to make a motion to allocate 50,000 out of the FY 25 employee retention line appropriation to newly established legacy fund to, add an initial contribution of $25,000 alongside $10,000 donation already provided.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Ms. Santillo, you're going to get a check for $500 from me, as a donation towards this.
Okay, great, thank you. So we will, work with Ms. Rosa to set this up and, move the funds around to fund this account, and then we will have an ordinance to, have the first reading at the regular council meeting. That just gives us an extra day. And then, the budget meetings following, we'll have a public hearing and a second reading.
But we can't set up the fund until all that is completed and the ordinance is passed, right?
We just approved the agreement, so we can set it up via that, and then we'll set the parameters,
The ordinance is the parameters for how we,
how to,
How
how
we
about
use
using
it.
the funds,
okay.
and yes,
So in other words, based on what we've done tonight, we can proceed to set up the fund
correct,
to meet the deadline that we have to meet or lose the $10,000.
correct.
Just to add to that, sorry, Council President, so by the time, next time we need to discuss this, I presume that 25,000 will be, the account is created ideally and 25,000 invested in a flagship pool. Is that, Councilperson Matterly, is that
Yes.
kind of the takeaway, right?
Yes,
All right,
that's
perfect.
how it's.
Then we're just gonna,
I'm sorry,
I was just saying, so my takeaway here is that by the next time we meet to discuss this, whenever that is, you'll already hopefully set up this fund for DCF and already transfer $25,000 into the
yes,
flagship pool.
So we already have the 10.
we have the tech from the anonymous donors.
So then there is no huge rush for the
Correct,
ordinance
yes, so
because
we can just introduce the ordinance in June and then in
finish it in July in the normal process.
Yes.
Because if all we need to do to get it set up and meet that deadline is what we've already done, then the ordinance can be more thoughtfully prepared instead of rushed through.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The next item is first reading of ordinance 554 to amend the municipal code regarding the senior citizens property tax exemption. I will read the ordinance and then we'll have our public hearing and subsequent discussion at a future meeting. Whereas the council of the city of Newcastle, City Council possesses the authority to adopt, amend, modify, or repeal the City of Newcastle Municipal Code, City Code. And whereas the City of Newcastle recognizes the burden real property taxes may have on senior citizens who are often on a fixed income. And whereas the existing property tax exemption for senior citizens has not been adjusted since 2007. And whereas the City Council finds that a moderate adjustment to the real property tax exemption for senior citizens in the City of Newcastle is prudent and appropriate and in the best interest of the city and its residents. Now therefore, making the express finding that the provisions of this ordinance enhance and promote the health, safety, and welfare of the City of Newcastle, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Newcastle as follows. Section 1, City Code Chapter 221, Taxation, Article 1, Senior Citizens Exemption, Section 221-1. Conditions for exemption on real property tax is hereby amended as follows, with the new language identified in bold and underlined and deleted text shown by a bold strike-through text. Section 221-1. Conditions for exemption on real property tax. Every resident of the city of Newcastle, being the owner of real property located therein, who is 65 years of age or older, shall be entitled to an exemption from municipal taxation on such real property to the extent of the first 32,000 of assessed value thereof, provided that the income of the property owner shall not exceed $25,000, changed from 15 for an individual, or 40,000 changed from 30 for a couple. No person shall be entitled to an exemption from the taxation unless he or she shall have made written application therefor prior to September 1st, 1970, for the fiscal year July 1st, 1970 to June 30th, 1971, and prior to May 1st of each subsequent year for the fiscal year beginning on the following July 1st. The Council of the Mayor and Council of Newcastle may by resolution prescribe forms upon which application for exemption from taxation under this article shall be made. Section 2, if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is for any reason held to be unconstitutional or invalid, such decision shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 3, in the event any existing ordinances or parts of ordinances are in conflict herewith, the provisions of this ordinance shall control. And Section 4, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its adoption and approval. Okay. And the final item on our agenda for tonight is discussion, motion, and possible vote to authorize an agreement to utilize a right-of-way agreement on Harmony Street. Should I read the agreement or just summarize it?
You can summarize it and I'm happy to help as well.
Okay. Actually, yeah, since you've been involved with this, Ms. Tantillo, why don't you tell us about it and summarize it? Thank you.
Sure. So, Mr. Lorenz is a resident here in the city, and there is an area at the edge of his property, which was maintained by a former owner of that property. It is city property. It's another street, and Mr. Lorenz has reached out to us and the Battelle and Reed DAR chapter to ask the city permission to plant some beautiful plants in that location, make it more scenic, and has also requested the DAR chapter to help fund that. So we have prepared a right-of-way agreement between us, the city, and Mr. Lorenz to allow him to do this. And that has been provided to you along with the exhibits which indicate the location and which also present the plans that Mr. Lorenz would like to plant in that location.
And I noticed that the agreement also has conditions that it has to be maintained for public use,
Correct.
and it's revocable, and
If we order it to be removed.
it's right, and if Mr. Lorenz no longer owns the property, then that ends the agreement. And it's an indemnification and hold harmless of the city, its officers, employees, elected officials from damages or expenses related to this use.
Yes.
And Mr. Lorenz agrees to maintain the improvements in its clean, safe, and orderly condition, and comply with applicable local, state, and federal laws. He agrees not to interfere with access and utilities, and to remove the improvements, I guess, should he sell his home and therefore no longer be maintaining it. So the way this is written, it sounds like a no-risk way for the city to get a kind of messy piece of property turned into something attractive.
Yes.
Council President Sauer, I would just like to say that Mr. Lorenz was out there cleaning up the property, trash and everything, and I referred him to the city administrator, and they went out, the city went out with large machinery. And they cleared that area, and Mr. Lorenz has put a bench there for the time being, and I see people sitting out there all the time. You can look down Harmony Street now and see the water. It's great. So the Battellery chapter is the chapter that I belong to, and we approved $500 for the project toward of his $899 that he requested.
I just want to note, Mr. Lorenz did originally request a bench to be installed on his accord. We think it'd be more appropriate if the city installed the bench and ensured the safety and upkeep of that. So we will be looking into that as soon as possible.
Thank you. I love this. I'm smiling as I'm listening to this, honestly. Like, this is fantastic effort. I reached out to the prior city administrator and Antonina. One of the first communications I had was, I read this article in the New York Times a while ago about how cities are reinventing these empty spaces and identifying areas where you can, plant some of these native plants. And, it's an effort for first 2-3 years, but then it's kind of, sustainable and not much upkeep going forward. And I, talked to the tree commission at the time with Mr. Bartel, and I think I engaged Antonina in this process as well. And, this is my kind of dream to have a, almost like a superintendent part of public services to identify these locations in the city where we could, even more if possible, right? Like, beautify the city in these areas that could use uplift. So I'm really happy to see this. This is a fantastic initiative, and fully support this. I it's really just bringing a smile to my face. And we were in Europe last year, driving through Germany, and everywhere you go, like as you leave in the city, it's just so beautiful. Everything just native plants, out the native plants. And we do a good job. Denver does a good job in Delaware as well, I believe. Well, as you go down the highway, but for them, that starts in the city, right? As you walk out, as you drive outside the city. So those are some of the things that we also have currently, but I also just always thought like could expand even more. So I love this. Absolutely, that's amazing. That's the beauty of our town.
I see that Mr. Lorenz is here. Did you want to say anything? No?
I appreciate the Department of Public Works for their help. I think they took pity on me. I was cleaning up the brush, and they had a crew come out and help, and that allowed me to access the site and get a couple bins of garbage removed from there. So, what I'm asking for is permission to plant a Delaware perennial garden at the end of Harmony Street there, and DAR chapter, Reed and Patel chapter has agreed to help with some of that expense. So really seeking two things. One is permission, and Antonina has been helpful in putting together an agreement that would protect the city and allow me to plant that garden and maintain it going forward. And if there's any, if there's a couple $100 in funds that would help close the gap between about a $900 budget and the $500 I'm getting from DAR, that'd be helpful too. But appreciate the support and like the comments that we've been getting so far. And as soon as you got a bench, let me know and I'll pull my temporary bench out of there. But people are loving it as they in the last month or so.
So I'm on the board for Arisato. I'm not promising any money, but if we can touch base, we might be able to use some funding to assist you with that.
I was wondering the same thing.
That'd be great. Yeah, if the DAR said no, you're my next, that group was my next call, so.
One of the other biggest expenses, believe it or not, is a tiller, and that's the biggest expense on there, so.
Yeah, if anybody has a tiller I can borrow,
Yeah,
let me know.
but you have to till it all up.
I may be able to help you with that. But I did have one question. So you're just doing it at ground level. It's not a raised bed or anything. Everything's at ground level?
Yes,
Right.
the cleanup removed all the decades of debris and, branches and things like that. Essentially, I'm proposing a rectangular perennial garden at the terminus of Harmony Street at the water there. So it's a rectangular garden, not raised, it's just, level with the ground. If the city's got any extra bricks I can use for edging around it, that'd be great. And it's perennial Delaware native plants so that it would be in bloom year after year from June to September, so.
Gotcha.
Sounds lovely.
And I'm willing to donate towards the cause, I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I have an electronic tiller that we can touch base that you can.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, it seems silly to have to buy one just for this little strip, but, thank you.
Any other comments, or is there a motion to approve this agreement?
I just want to, question for the council, this is a very unusual situation, but I don't know, I'm looking around the room for whoever has authority or not, just, are we able to authorize up to $500 out of the same amount, we just authorize to meet the gap? No, okay, yeah, that's it, that was my thought, just, yeah, no more comments from you.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Lorenz for doing that. And I look forward to, I know other people look forward to visiting this garden on the next garden tour, hopefully next year.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
Okay, and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your work.
Thank you, Max, for, stop, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for somebody.
I'm not shy.
No, that's what I like about you.
Thank you,
Motion on
John.
the
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting stands adjourned.